So this time in the car I have Leszek Drogosz, the infrastructure director for the city of Warsaw, and a veteran of the profession.
Maybe you're right. I'm 29 years in City Hall.
Lots of changes in that time, and the changes are now coming thick and fast. It seems that cities around the world really are at the forefront of dealing with the possible effects of climate change.
We are slightly different than the state level when we think about climate, when we think about energy management, because we are not responsible for the state economy, for the labor market, for that kind of things. We are more flexible, have a more open, sustainable energy policy and implementation of that policy in a faster way. From that model of thinking for the planning for the future, for us it is much easier. But when we are doing something, in some cases we see that it is hard to do this having completely different policy on the state level. We did some kind of that inventory from our side of the city of Warsaw from our CO2 emissions, and this is probably a good picture of what is most important problem for us. This is of course energy generation. And when we compare Warsaw to some other cities in the world, especially Nordic cities, we see that even they have the same level of the energy consumption, even sometimes much higher energy consumption than we have, and they have just 20 or 30% of the CO2 emissions like we have, because of this source of energy. So we have the energy from the hard coal, from the brown coal, and only about 20% from another sources, and about maybe, I don't know, 13% of the renewable energy sources.
Now, cities generally are associated with buildings, and buildings, of course, are, on the whole, one of the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases. How is Warsaw dealing with this on a practical level?
One of the most important things this is to understand that maintenance of buildings generates a lot of CO2 emissions, but also construction of buildings. Last year Warsaw was constructed more than 20,000 new apartments, about 800,000 square meters new spaces for the offices. Every 1 square meter is 1 ton of CO2 emissions during the construction period. And after that, of course, a lot of emissions during the maintenance. So about 2 years ago, we started a project called Warsaw Housing Policy. One of that aspects, this is to create new houses for the not very expensive citizens, but also to create some kind of new housing standards. Not only energy standard of building, but also the quality of life, like the green areas surrounding buildings, mixture of different generations of living in the same area, level of economy of that people. That kind of things we are taking into one model, so like more sustainable living, having 3 aspects of the sustainability, like economy, society, and environment. I hope that it will also give something what could improve the quality of life from the point of view of adaptation to climate change, because we have to understand that these buildings we are constructing now will exist after 60, 70, 80 years.
And climate will be very different by then.
Yes, and some of experts, they are saying, you know, Warsaw is slightly changing every 10 years, going down on the map of the Europe from the place of the Warsaw exists to, for instance, Bratislava and maybe even Ankara, for instance. This building must be prepared for that higher temperature, for instance.
And a lot more rainfall. And,
yes. And even winds and storms and so on. The first thing, this is to understand better that we are really in the dangerous situation. We have examples of climate change in our country. Of course, it is necessary to prepare some kind of programs, policies, strategies, to protect our citizens, to protect our cities from, and of course businesses in the cities, from that dangerous situations. For instance, Warsaw is preparing adaptation to climate change strategy, and it will be adopted, I hope, by the City Council in the next few months. We see that Warsaw, divided in 18 districts, has about 18 different policies necessary to implement, because for instance here in this central part of the city area is completely different to the area of, for instance, Waver district, when we have different number of people, different concentration of the inhabitants, and also close to the Vistula River, and so on and so on.
What's your climate message to the world? Or maybe what's your climate message to the world's cities?
So first, believe that climate is changing, and that changes are really dangerous, and that changes are really close. And second, everyone has to do something what is really important to stop climate changes. And we don't believe that someone will do this and we could only wait for his work. All of us, we have to do this, and we have to stop climate changes, and we are responsible for this world.
Leszek Drogosz, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.